See what happens when you just pause and you let the energy settle. And the energy becomes clear. It's a fascinating thing because when we have that clear energy, we see life differently. We feel life differently. We act differently. But it takes a moment to just be still and to silence ourselves to see. So yesterday I had a little time after we taught class in the afternoon, and one of the things that I noticed was in the shift of seasons, the birds were now doing their fall dance. They were gathering in swarms and they were moving in unison. And you could see that they were about to do something different. You could also see that there's a huge crop of acorns out where I live right now. And the squirrels were busy gathering. You could see them all over gathering and that type of thing. You can see that everything is in movement, and it's about movement to become more, to experience more. And so as I thought about this idea that everything is about to increase, I asked the question that we're exploring today is, why is it that within us is this desire to always want more? No matter how much of this we've had or that we've had or this, that, you name it, in any aspect of life, we're always seeking for more. And what comes to me really clearly is we are self-aware. This is what makes us different from animals or birds or anything else on the planet, is we're self-aware. But within this self-awareness of who we are, there's like a magnet within us that says, okay, you're not here to stay at the same level. You're here to grow. You're here to become more. And I want to change that word I just said. I said you want to grow. You can't grow. Do you see? You cannot possibly grow. Because you're the individualization of God, divine expressing right here and right now. And if you take a drop of the ocean, it has every property of the ocean in it already. It's fully the ocean, but it's not all of the ocean. So when we look at consciousness or we look at the divine, each of us is that drop with the perfection of the divine right centered there. So all we are doing every day of our life is becoming aware that all the properties that created this cosmos are there for us to use. And what happens within us is that there is this DNA. It's our natural DNA that's causing us to want to be more, to express more, to experience more. And then because it's natural within us, we look out there and say, so what is it about the rest of the world? Well, the rest of the world is always about becoming more. It is always moving up the ladder and becoming a greater expression of itself. They said that since the Big Bang, the universe is going out at even a greater speed and it's still expanding, and that's 14 billion years. And it's going out at such a vibrant level that it's even becoming more massive. It's doubling just like this. So this aspect that we call God, this aspect that we call the universe, is always becoming more. And if it's becoming more, then it's our nature because we're in that. We are the creation of that. And it created itself out of itself. Did you hear that? Because when the cosmos, when God decided to create everything, there was nothing it could do but to choose itself to create from. Because to think that there was something outside of God to create would be to say that God is not infinite. It violates common understanding. Infinite means all. So we get to the point of understanding that we are always going to seek more because it's natural within us to seek more. And I want to say this very clearly. It's at the physical level, the mental level, the emotional level, and the awareness or the spiritual level. It is not that we're just seeking more stuff, but we're seeking to have an experience of emotion. We're seeking to have an experience of intellect, increasing our wisdom. It's a seeking of having a greater connection to all that is, a connection with ourself with all that is, a connection with ourself with each other, a connection and seeing the commonality in the world. And what I fully understand is why I cannot watch politics today is because in politics today, they're talking about duality. They're talking about separation. They're talking about this side and that side. And that's not what I believe. You see, I believe that we're all one. And I believe that in that idea of oneness, we should all be working together to the up-leveling of consciousness within each other. And so when I ask you today to make sure you do your civic duty for voting, I'm asking you to choose the candidate in your mind who will best bring about a policy within our magnificent nation which will impact the world, that will bring to us closer to getting rid of our boundaries and coming together as one. I don't care who you vote for. I ask you to vote with awareness and with consciousness. Because in this country, in this world, we are creating it. Did you hear that? We are creating it. Not the government, not a particular individual. We are creating it. We are the consciousness of the one. And together our consciousness is that powerful. And it doesn't matter who gets elected. Are you hearing that? Because the second we think it matters about who's getting elected, we're saying that that person has dominion over us. We're saying that there is separation. We're saying that that power is greater than who we are, and that drop of the ocean is different than this drop of the ocean, and that cannot be. So I want you to breathe that in, because it's a different point of view than I'm sure you've been hearing lately. We cannot make a mistake, because we're the divine. The divine never makes a mistake. The divine has contrast as us so that we can choose and experience something new. One of the things that I want to talk about is that knowing that the DNA of wanting more, becoming more aware is within us, when we recognize that, we start to shift our perspective of what our life is. We start to have a new feeling about why are we here? Because all of a sudden, the small vision that we may have had, how we're wrapped up in all of our problems and our issues, becomes inconsequential, because now we're saying, wait a second, if I have this divine DNA to become more, and I am the individualization of God, I have no boundaries. You see, if you know you're the individualization of God as this drop of water, and you know you're in an ocean that is all God and there is nothing else, can you fear anything? There is no fear whatsoever. All fear is an illusion that we've created. It centers on an idea that we will die, that we will cease to exist. And you see, we don't cease to exist. We shift forms. Because the energy that we are can never be destroyed. The consciousness that we are can never be destroyed. When that time comes, what we do is we shed this physical body that is no longer serving the higher elevation of the divine within us. And when we shed this body, that individualization that we are, that soul that we are, moves on into the universe to awaken in a way that we can't even imagine. I like to think of it like this, is that life is like a camera. And when we start, initially, we focus in. And I'm picturing Tana right there, and I've got this real clear focus, and she's smiling back at me. And it says, oh, I think I'm going to go have an In-N-Out burger for lunch today. But you see, when I'm focusing like that, it's an individual focus, right? So there's my camera. But what I do now as I become more aware, I put a new lens in my camera. I put a wide angle lens so that when I'm focusing, I no longer see just Tana, but I see everything in front of me. And with that new idea and that new lens, I now become a different player in the world. I play differently. I see it differently. I see myself in the world differently. Because if I'm focused over here and I only see that, well, the only interaction I see is this. But when I have my wide angle on, I see all of this. So there's all of this interaction going on, not only with just me and you and everyone there, but there's interaction going on in all directions. Energy is flowing. So how do we do this? How do we become so that we honor, we bless this idea of self-expansion, about creative expression, about knowing that it's in our DNA to want more? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to come to grips with our past. We have to be able to look at our past and realize it is no longer our present. And if there is any information from the past that serves us in our awakening now, we take that knowledge forward. But if there is any pain from the past, what we do is we realize that our DNA is drawing us forward to a greater expression, and we realize in the past there was something there being brought forward, so we look at what was once a very hurtful event, and we balance it with the good that we can see in that event, because everything has a positive and a negative charge, and when they're realized, there's a neutrality of that charge, so no longer will that person own us. That person who we believe hurt us, that event that hurt us to beat the band, that person who left us too soon in our lives, we now see that there's a good. Because there is a good. It could be, for example, when my mother passed away, who was the best friend I had in the world, what good could come out of that? I'll tell you, the relationship I now have with my father is one I could never have had while Mom was alive. So the good that happened there is Mom released herself because her body no longer served her, and now my father and I have a relationship as a result of that. And there's so much more that's happened because of that. And you see, it's a matter of stepping back and looking at the past from the standpoint of not, oh my God, that happened to me. No, looking at the past and saying, oh my God, look at how that's helped me become more self-aware. So once we've looked at the past, then we go to this aspect where we make dreaming an everyday occurrence. Because if we're all about becoming more, then we've got to figure out what that is. And so it's great to sit down and dream. And I'm going to share with you this. You got to put aside, when you dream, you got to put aside your family background, you got to put aside your ethnicity, you got to put aside your sexuality, you got to put aside your sex, you got to put aside your age, you got to put aside all of this stuff because it's all limiting. And you've got to go, okay, if I have a clean slate and I have the potential to do, be, have anything, what would that be? What can I imagine? Wouldn't it be great if there was a theater we could go to, and when we sat down at the theater, all we saw were possibilities of life? And so we could sit there for hours and just get all of these possibilities of life flashing in front of us, and we can say, I want a little of that, I want a little of that, I want a little of that, I think I want this first, and now I'm going to start to visualize it and vision it and dream about it and talk about it. And so we've put this past beside us. We put it behind us. We've now put these dreams out there and we've said, okay, we've got these dreams. Now once we have the dreams in mind, we start acting in alignment with the dream. It's about our thoughts, our words, and our actions are totally focused on the dream. Everything. We do not care what anyone else in society thinks, because society doesn't share your dream or my dream. Your spouse may not share your dream or my dream, or your dream and, well, my dream too. Your kids may not share your dream. Your parents may not share your dream. You can't look at any of that. Because you're not here to please your parents, you're not here to please your spouse, you're not here to please your children. You are here for the expansion of the individualization of the infinite that you are. And as you expand, the world, the cosmos, everything expands. Your partner, your family, your friends, and all of that, they're just here to be on the journey. You've chosen them to be on your journey so that you can be supported and they can help you grow. You see, when we embrace this idea that it's about support and growth, our relationships take on a new form. And we realize it goes back to where we started with. We have relationships in our lives because our DNA is saying we want more. And those relationships serve us in the becoming of more, whether it's in a joyful way or it's in a painful way. We can learn either through joy or we can learn through pain. Neither one is better than the other, but I'll share with you, you can choose which way you go. And I'll tell you what, I choose joy. I'm one of those people that I seek pleasure. I seek pleasure in everything I do. And that for me has been the gift of my life. Instead of focusing on, I've got to go through a dark night of the soul. No, if I have a dark night of the soul, I say, okay, what's the good that I can see? How can I focus on it? And people say, Lee, you're too Pollyannish. You've got to face the facts. And I look at them in the eye and I say, if I face the facts, then I have the life that I don't want. And why would I want to face facts that produce something that's not in my intention to experience and express in life? If I do that, then I'm saying I'm not the individualization of the one, that I'm not all powerful in my life. I am subordinating myself to someone else. And the last thing we should ever do in life is subordinating ourselves to anyone or any teaching. The people who were in class last night heard me say this really clearly. I said, do not put me on a pedestal. Do not accept what I say to be true. Take whatever you feel is right and prove it for yourself, because you're the only one who knows what's right for you. And until you prove it for yourself, it's not of any value. It's useless. Knowledge or wisdom that is not knowledge, where you're using it in your life, is absolutely useless. You might as well not even have it. So if you have a desire and you have an idea that you want to express, start expressing it, start living it, start acting it, so you can prove to yourself how great a creator you are. And if you can't seem to prove it, find a practitioner and let them see it for you so that they can bring you back, because there may be a block that you may not be seeing. You see, that's what a practitioner does, is they see beyond your limitations to your truth. And the truth that you are is you are infinite, you're the divine, and you're all powerful. They are no better than you. They just come at it from a different perspective and can see that. So Jean and Roxanne are excellent at that. So as we come and we've done our divine action, the final step is we realize that not only are we doing that for ourselves, but we're doing it for the rest of humanity. We're doing it for the idea of oneness. So here's a real kicker. This is a real one to live by. Whatever we want for ourselves, we want for everybody else. See, we have been taught that there is a limited supply. And think about this. The universe is expanding at a greater rate than it's ever expanded. Is the universe limited? No. It's constantly becoming more. It is infinite. We are infinite. There's infinite amounts of resources all around. People say, well, there's limited oil. Well, oil is not the only source of how we move. The second that something happens that the oil supply is no longer relevant, the mind of God that we are will come up with a new way that we will transport ourselves. We could literally, if we so choose, use our mind and transport ourselves. This happens all the time in India. There have been studies that were done in India where they took great masters, and scientists watched these individuals leave from one point. It should take 3 weeks to get to another point, and they are there in hours. But science today doesn't want to recognize that, but yet there are books written about this all over the place. This mind is all powerful, but it only can be as powerful as the degree that you or I or we envision as possible. Do you see that? So this idea of possibility exists, but it's about what Jesus said. Jesus said it so clearly. It is done unto us as we believe. Our whole purpose in life is building a bigger belief with a bigger vision, and as we build that bigger belief and bigger vision, we live the bigger life, and the wholeness and allness of life rises up, and what we once thought was joyful becomes normal, and joy goes up to another level. What we thought was abundant here, it rises to another level. There is enough in this world right today to feed the world 4 times over. There is no lack of food in the world. There is a lack of consciousness that everyone has enough to eat. There is enough material in the world for everyone to have a home. There's a lack of consciousness that everyone should have a home. There is enough opportunities for everyone in this country, in this world, to be fully, gainfully employed doing that which they like. There's a lack of consciousness that that is possible. You see, it's not about the government creating jobs. It's not about business creating jobs. It's about you and I determining what is that DNA within us pulling us to do, to express. And when we decide to express that in whatever area it is, we will create a service that someone else will want. Because what happens is, when we become into this oneness, this is so beautiful. If all I want to do is teach and learn and be a minister, I can find the person who wants to cut my yard, clean my home, do this, do that for me, and everyone finds what they want to do. We don't handle and keep doing the things that don't bring us joy. For any job out there, there's someone who would love to do the job. Because remember, there are different levels of awareness. There are different values in every human being. So what we may not want to do, there's someone who gets great joy out of that. But see, we have to be able to embrace this idea. Embrace this idea that it's not just about us, but as we change, everything changes. So what I want to bring you back to is where we started. That there's a perfect spot that exists right where you are, and it's in your heart. And your heart is opening day by day. It's becoming more and more and more and more open. And as it does, it says, I can't play small anymore. I want to be more. I want to be more physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And when we embrace that, and we level off our field of how we look at the past so the past no longer pulls us backwards, and we use our mind to imagine new and great things that we desire to have, to experience, and to be in the world. And we shift our actions with our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. And then we realize that it's not just the individual, but we are doing it as a collective. We are living the life that the Christ, that the Buddha, that every great spiritual avatar said, this is how you experience heaven on earth. So I see who you are. You're perfect just as you are. And what I do right now is, in my mind, I take away the limitations that you have put in front of you. I don't see those limitations. And if you come and take a moment at this very moment and you see yourself through my eyes, you will see someone different. And I invite you to hold that vision in your mind. And you go forth today thinking, I am perfect. I can have, do, and be anything. And I choose from this day forward to play big. I choose to be unlimited. I choose to be love.